Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome. If you are listening to this and reading this, I want to thank you for being here. I want to talk about something that I want to try in a newsletter, and also, why not take the time to reintroduce myself, to talk about who I am and what kinds of things you can expect from my social media and everything else that I'm doing. So, for years, I have been really writing in many places. I have been writing grant proposals, I have been writing artist statements, exhibition text, captions under paintings, and sometimes in the quiet margins of my notebooks and sketchbook. So I have been writing in many, many ways to understand the world that I move through, not only as an artist, but a son of immigrants, a cultural worker, and really someone who believes deeply, very deeply, that culture, that the arts have the power to not only tell our stories, but also push us forward. And I'm here because I want to try something different. I want to create a newsletter called Rooting Cultura, where I can have a place where all those threads can come together. And Rooting Cultura is a newsletter that will be primarily written. I may make it into audio essays or audio discussions, and really want to hone in and continue to talk through the writing and the written form, where I am really, really liking to communicate. If you're new here, I want to say hello. My name is Antonio Alanís, and I am an interdisciplinary visual artist, illustrator, nonprofit grant writing consultant, and recently, as of 2025, I became a children's picture book author, illustrator, as well as a gallery curator. I never really imagined that I would write a children's picture book this soon, although it was one of my dreams, and to really give myself a platform to showcase the book Clarita Migrates North. I became a gallery curator where I invited a few artists working and living in the Triangle area of North Carolina, and we talked about how the arts can humanize our stories through art, through community building, through coming together. And so I've been really, really exploring many questions that I will talk more in the few minutes. But my work really moves through multiple mediums. It moves through murals, it moves through exhibitions, children's picture books, community programs, and of course, when I work with nonprofit organizations, through grant writing proposals. And these mediums of communication have allowed me to explore a few simple yet profound questions that I seek to address and to answer. I don't know if I will ever get to answer them, and I really enjoy working with artists, activists, people who work in these spaces, who collaborate to answer the following questions. The first question is, how does culture shape the way that we see each other? The second question is, how can art move us further? The third question, how can art either uphold or challenge systems working for and against us? And a lot of the work that I do seeks to answer those questions. And I come here not to say that I'm new to this. I've been working for now over a decade in multiple spaces, and I really have had many reflections that oftentimes I need to continue to explore and really deepen. Expressions that I've heard all my life, expressions that I don't believe in, and new observations that I am learning as I develop in my professional life, in my professional and also personal life as well. So one of those things that I'm learning and unlearning really is that art is just for decoration. I began to really understand that art is never just that decoration. Art for me is moving beyond the aesthetics of placing it on our walls and admiring and looking at it, but really it goes beyond that. It goes beyond to the message, into discussion, into bringing people together. That's something that I really enjoyed. And one question that continues to bother me, honestly, is how can art really promote us further? How can art make us a more inclusive and just society? And in my research and my reading and my writing, I came to a few observations that I like to share, that art shapes imagination, that imagination shapes culture, that culture shapes politics, and politics shapes the conditions of our and other people's lives. And it is a continuum that happens from the start to the end, and where policy responds to making sure that people have the resources that they need to live a thriving life. And so that realization is really what has pushed me forward into cultural activism, or artivism, ARTVISM, artivism, and what artivism means. So in this new writing format and also audio essays, I want to explore the intersection of art, the intersection of culture, the intersection of power in this newsletter called Reading Cultura. And I want to talk about what some essays I will write about, or what kinds of things you can expect. Now, I don't promise that these are going to be the things that I will talk about. Many of these things have been thoughts that I've had, but also it may be more topics that I can't think about right now, because as you know, where we live and in the times that we live in, sometimes it's hard to really anticipate what's going to happen next. So I may have more topics, but these are the ones that I'm thinking about and I have been writing about so far. Some of the essays that I will explore in this work will have to do the work that I do as an artist. I often create illustrations, I create murals and exhibitions that center our migration stories, that center our immigrant culture, especially the first and second generation communities, our migrant voices, and the people whose stories are rarely reflected with dignity. I'm really interested in narrative shifting. I'm really interested in creating and providing opportunities for ourselves to stand in our light, to reject harmful narratives about what people say, and continue to project about who we are as Latinos, as Mexican Americans, as Mexicans, as people from Latin America. And really, a lot of the work that I'm doing is really to explore and to reject, continue to shift those stories that many times can create wrong ideas about who we are. And I can talk more about that. Essentially, in this work, I'm interested in belonging, in identity, in cultural pride, and the quiet hope that exists in everyday life. So that's the first kind of essay topic. The second essay topic that I will talk about will be essays that explore migration and narrative shift. And I want to center this in the discussion of Clarita Migrates North, which is my recently published children's picture book. And this book started to humanize the experience of migration through the eyes of a child. I often see migration discussions through statistics and political conversations, all important, but I often think that what's missing in my experience is listening to the human stories beneath what we may hear in the news, what we may think about when we read a newspaper or a recently published magazine. So it's really something that I really want to explore. Another topic that I'm passionate about is education. I regularly help create art programming for young people, for families, whether it's through painting, through workshops, bilingual art spaces, and of course, community projects. I've seen how creative expression can help people process emotions, build confidence, and strengthen cultural identity. Art can open so many doors and so many windows that oftentimes I've observed that traditional conversations sometimes cannot. Which again, I can talk more about what those traditional conversations are and have been in my experience. Other topic that I will learn and continue to explore rather, and also why not learn? I will write about something that is less visible, but deeply connected to my work. This is philanthropy. More specifically, grant writing and access to funding. How either that can propel us forward or try to stop our potential. For many years, I have worked with nonprofits and community organizations, helping them secure with funding and initiatives for programs in populations like youth, as well as other initiatives like mental health and cultural projects that, again, provide the connection, the belonging that all of us can benefit from when engaging in the arts. Although I don't really work with nonprofit participants directly, meaning the participants that nonprofit professionals work with, I do work with people in charge of the nonprofits. And my work in grant writing really focuses in continuing to strengthen organization stability to continue thriving in this world and continuing to provide programming to the people that I work with. Another topic that I will continue to explore will be the life of the artist. I have been particularly interested recently in how artists are workers, in cultural production, and how cultural production is labor. I'm really learning more about artists as people who are workers, and how artists deserve fair compensation, protection, and recognition for the value that they create. I have long rejected the myth that artists must struggle financially. I believe that artists deserve sustainable careers, fair working conditions, and the ability to build stable lives through creativity. Really, when artists thrive, entire communities benefit as well and thrive as well. Another topic that I will continue to talk about is representation. How representation is central to my work. Most of my, if not all of my illustrations focus on depicting people of color, of Latino, Latinx communities with dignity and depth. because images shape how society understands and understand themselves and ourselves. So, I know I talked a lot about the topics, but I have more questions that I will continue to explore in this project and they are, who controls cultural narratives? Who receives funding? Who gets to be visible? Who gets to tell their story? Who gets to be heard? And so with that, I want to say that culture is never neutral. It reflects systems of power. For me, storytelling becomes a way to respond to that reality. So I will be using this newsletter project called Reading Cultura to continue to write about, make art, and reflect, to reclaim our narratives, celebrate our culture, and amplify the voices that are often overlooked. So I will not do this through shouting, I will do this through careful observation and storytelling. And so to conclude, really this newsletter will be to have a space for those reflections. Some of these posts will be personal, some will be cultural analysis, some will be observations about art, institutional power, and the changing role of artists in society and advocacy as well. So all of them will come from the same place. I believe that culture matters and that culture has the power to change us. That culture has the power to move us forward. So thank you for reading this newsletter. Thank you for listening. And I look forward to continuing the conversation together. Thank you so much.